Well, a very, very warm welcome. Hi, my name is Cassim, and I want to welcome you to the first episode of Man to Man. Really, I just want to thank you so much for taking the time to listen. I just want to take the time to thank you so much for spending the time with me over the next hour. And I hope that something that I say today can help you become a higher, fuller expression of who you are capable of becoming. Firstly, let me start off by saying I never originally wanted to actually do this podcast because I want to give you a bit of a background as to why it is that I started this podcast and where I want to kind of take it. Originally, I was supposed to be starting a show last week, which was going to be advice to like my brother, and I was going to use that platform to share advice to men of questions that I think men were suffering with and problems that men were experiencing in their life. However, what ended up happening, which I wasn't expecting, is that several people over the last week have essentially spoken to me about starting a podcast, but I had no idea what in the world to start a podcast about. And two events over the last week have happened which forced me to essentially start this podcast. Reason being is that several times this week I've had men come to me and essentially ask me for advice. You know, it's really funny. Most of you will probably find this really bizarre, but well, it's not really that bizarre, but when I look at my audience and I look at people who watch my videos and who interact with my sort of things that I share, 80% of them are males. 80%. So it's obviously I am a lad and I am a guy, and so of course you would expect that most of the people who are going to watch and listen to the things that I say are going to typically be men, but obviously that's a huge amount of them. So I wanted to create this podcast called Man to Man, essentially to just share with you guys things that I have learned. You know, I realize that some of you guys, you've never had a man sit down with you and talk about men's stuff and kind of discuss stuff that I think is really important for men. Some of you don't really have a father figure in your life. You don't have a male who you can essentially go to and have a really kind of deep conversation with. And I essentially wanted to use this platform to do that. And actually, as part of it, in a way, is selfish of me, but I wanted to use this platform to get out some of the things that I have in my head. You know, I read a considerable amount. I consume a considerable amount of content, of knowledge of how to help men become a higher, fuller expressions of themselves. And sometimes I don't know how to get it across to people. And the easiest form that I have found to use to articulate some of my ideas, to articulate what I'm feeling, to articulate what I'm going through, that I have found is essentially to be able to do it in podcast form. Because in podcast form, I can just talk and just, there doesn't have to be a format to anything. So what I wanted to do today is I wanted to talk to you about 5 subjects. 5 things that I think are really important, that have happened over the last week, that I've been really thinking about, that I just want to talk to you guys about. And I'm just going to give them to you in what I call Cassim language. I'm not going to sound fancy. I'm not going to sound all professional. I'm just going to talk to you, and I'm going to tell you how I would talk if I was, you know, talking to my brother, if I was talking to one of the lads about these particular subjects. The 5 subjects that I want to talk to you about is, number 1, I want to talk to you about a conversation me and my mum had yesterday regarding relationships today and the difficulties that men have with trying to find a woman today. I want to talk about living your life by principles. I want to talk about the importance of building confidence. Next, I then want to talk about learning from your life. And lastly, I want to talk about researching the areas that are important to you, such as success, happiness, wealth, vitality, mental health. And I just want to talk to you about that. So let's go into it. Let me begin off by firstly talking to you about a conversation that me and my mum had. So yesterday, me and my mum had a conversation. So I went to see my mum yesterday. For those of you who don't know, I'm a Muslim, and it was Eid recently. on Friday. Muslims have multiple Eids, but Eids are days of celebration. And the Eid that we've just had is a type of Eid where essentially it's more about giving to people. So what usually you're supposed to do is you're supposed to like go and buy meat and then give it to your neighbors, or go buy presents and go and give it to family members. Essentially, it's a way of adding value into other people's lives and making a contribution to other people, right? And so I went to see my mum because of Eid. I couldn't go and see her on Friday because I was actually working on Friday. So I went to see my mum not on Saturday, but on Sunday, yesterday. And when I arrived at my mum's house, one of her friends was, well, it's not actually a friend, it's a cousin. One of her cousins, a woman called Baba, was there at the property. Now, I don't know how many of you lads can relate to this who live outside of your family home. But the thing for me that I have found is every single time that I go and see my mum and my dad, essentially, I can almost guarantee it, my mum is going to speak to me about why I'm not married, why I haven't given her grandchildren. And I don't know how many of you can relate to that if you live outside the home, but that is a major, major force in my life at the moment. Every time I go and see my mum, she talks to me about, Cassim, son, why haven't you given me grandchildren? Why are you not married? It's a conversation that basically happens all the time, every time I go and see my mum. And inevitably, when I went to see her yesterday, that was one of the things that of course, came up. And she said some things that I found really interesting. So my mum, well, actually, initially, Baba, who's my mum's cousin, was talking about the fact that she's been around and spent some time in Uganda. Uganda is where, for those of you who don't know me, where I was born. Uganda is East Africa. Uganda runs right through the equator, so it's like quite a tropical country. For those of you who like things like mangoes, pineapples, bananas, that kind of fruit and that kind of food, you would love Uganda, because Uganda is that kind of climate where it's a very tropical climate. Anyhow, so Baba had been to Uganda and had spent a lot of time in Uganda over the last kind of 5 years or so. So my mum was going on and talking about the fact that in England today, it is so difficult for the male to find a woman who wants to commit to a relationship. And, part of the reason, a lot of women don't even understand this. We talk a lot today about how absolutely women should get the pay increase and how women should be equal. But I found that one of the major crises that is actually happening in the world at the moment is a lack of men finding women who need them. Let me take this further. I found that, and you can disagree with me here or not, but this is just my opinion and what I was thinking about. But we live in a world today where so many girls act like they don't need men. You go into a relationship with a girl, well, like you even start talking to a girl today, and off the bat, she'll tell you about how she can buy her own car, she can pay her own rent, she can do every single thing that a man can give her. So one of the things that I've always curious about is, so what the fuck do you need a man for then? And a lot of women don't realize that sometimes they can come across in this way of being independent and absolutely it's all about women power and getting ahead. But the reality, and this is what my mum was talking to me about, my mum was saying, and the Bible was saying, that a lot of women don't have the wisdom to understand that absolutely you should strive to become successful. Absolutely, you should strive for equal rights as women, but you've also got to have the wisdom to understand that when you get into a relationship, the man gets his self-esteem from providing. And my mum was talking about the fact that for those of you who don't know, I have sisters. 3 of them to be exact. And my sisters at the moment are finding it really, really difficult to find partners. And part of the reason why is because my father and my mother have raised my brothers and sisters to believe in themselves. They've raised them to hold on a minute. They've raised them to really believe that they can do anything and that anything is absolutely possible for them. And that's all very nice and that's all very great. But you have to remember that ultimately, it's all very nice believing in yourself. It's all very nice having all that power. It's all very nice having to pay your own way and paying your bills and buying your own house. But nobody wants to be alone. And my mum was saying that one of the worst things that you can do is be alone. In fact, I was telling my mum about the fact that we get people come into co-op. I used to work for co-op. I've actually just quit co-op, but I used to work for co-op. And I was saying that a lot of the people who end up dying first, and this is actually quite a sober, horrible topic to talk about, but if you look at couples, I don't know the exact numbers and the exact statistics, but it tends to be that as people get older, it is the man who dies first, and then the woman is left. And my mum was talking about the fact that my mum has been basically she's worked for Bupa as a carer, so literally looking after people who are paying like £2,000 a week because they're old and they can't clean themselves and etc. And she was saying that one of the things that she's found in being a carer for over 15 years, actually I think she's even been a carer for longer than that, she was saying that one of the things that happens is a lot of men can't cope without women. They just cannot cope. And a lot of the men who end up going psycho or crazy are the ones who don't have a woman by their side. And we have this epidemic, as I say, this crisis at the moment in the world. And it's not just happening in England. This is happening across the globe, where you've got women, you've got men and women who are going into their 30s, into their late 30s and into their 40s without having anyone. And it's kind of like, what the hell is going on? And I was just thinking about this, and I was thinking, honestly, this is so, I was talking to a guy who I work with in Tesco's called Jonathan. And I was saying to Jonathan that, Jonathan, mate, because I was talking about genuinely men talking to me about their problems, and he just was so happened to be telling me about his missus, and he was like, Cash, you don't understand. My missus, I take her to this shop, and even though I've taken her to this shop and I've given her this and I've given her that, it's still not enough. She still wants this, and she still wants me to be a superstar, and she still wants me to be able to do this and provide this and give her independence. And it's kind of like the things that she is expecting from me, Cass, I just cannot deliver. And I think that's essentially how a lot of men we feel. We feel like the things that women are expecting from us are just simply unattainable. They want us to give them space, but they want us to be there. They want us to be able to become millionaires, but at the same time be at home consistently. They want us to be great fathers, but they want us to be able to have a business. They want us to be able, do you understand? They want us to be able to look like Rome, like these athletes, but at the same time they want us to be somebody who isn't in the gym all the time. The expectations that women have on men today, I mean, it's ridiculous. It is ridiculous. It's the only way that I can explain it. It's a joke. And I don't know how many of you can relate to that, but I was just feeling like, boy, the pressure today to find a woman who, even, me and my mum were talking about this, to even find a woman who has morals, a woman who wants marriage, a woman who wants to commit to a relationship. And when I talk about commit to a relationship, I'm not talking about commit to a relationship in terms of let's get married, let's see how this goes for a couple of years. I mean a woman who will stick with you no matter what. I mean, I'm talking about a woman where when you say you are married, and unless you are dead, unless you lose your dick, unless I don't know, you become disabled, that woman will be with you. I was saying that to find those kind of women, those women just don't exist anymore. And maybe I'm crazy and maybe I'm wrong, but actually that's a lie. I can't make such a generalization. Obviously these women do exist. But my question is, where are they? Where are these women who are loyal, who will commit? Where are they? And why? And actually, funny enough that I talk about this, why is it that none of us can be able to find these incredible women? Can somebody please explain to me what's going on? Is it us? Is it us men? Because I found so many of my brothers out there, the lads, you guys are good. You're hardworking. You've got your shit together. In fact, one of the things that my mum was talking about when I went to see her yesterday, my mum said that there are so many men today that she encounters who are successful, who are good men, who go to the church, who pray, who go to the mosque, who, you know, they're family orientated, and they still can't find a missus. I don't know how many of you can relate to this, but could you please comment and send me a message and tell me, where is a brother these days supposed to actually go and find a good woman who doesn't, you know, who actually does need her, who actually wants her to be able to lead the family instead of her being the leader? Guys, by the way, whilst we're on this subject, I want to share something with you that I've learned, because it took, actually, when I learned this, it fucked with my head. It really messed with my head because I didn't quite understand it, but I'm going to share it with you. So I discovered recently that women don't actually, I'm going off topic here. I know I'm going off topic, but I want to share this with you because I think it's going to be important for you guys. I discovered that if you had a room of 100 women and you asked those women how many of them wanted to actually lead, who wanted to actually work full time, you will find that probably 90 out of those 100 of those women don't want to work. They don't want to lead. Right? Now, the incredible thing that I found about women, which again to this day shocks me, is women are helpers. Women love rescuing. Women like kind of fixing. Women like coming alongside and like enhancing everything, you know? You give a woman sperm, she will give you a baby. You give a woman a house, she will give you a home. You give her trouble, she will give you hell. That's a joke. Okay, that's a joke. That wasn't a joke, but it is a joke, but it isn't a joke, but you understand what I'm saying. But you get what I'm saying. Women have this incredible way of enhancing whatever it is that you give them. And I want you guys to understand that some of you lads, and this is what me and my mum were talking about, I think there's a lot of lads who just simply today don't lead. We're not leaders. We're not competent in many of the areas of our lives. Maybe you disagree with me and you're like, actually, Cassim, you know, that's bullshit. I am a competent person. Well, what are you competent in? Competence means that you are really, 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 really good at something. And I can hear some of you lads listening to me right now saying, well, Cassim, I'm good at FIFA. Bro, that's not what I mean. I mean, if you are going to be competent at something, it needs to be a domain of life. What is your gifting? What is your area of life that you're good at? But anyway, that's what me and my mum were talking about. And I just thought, do you know what? I'm going to talk about that because it's really frustrated me when I was talking to my mum yesterday. One of the things that I asked my mum was, well, okay, mum, well, what are lads supposed to do today? Where are we supposed to find these women? And even my mum found it difficult to really have an answer to that question. So maybe some of you guys, you have an answer to it. Where does a good man today find a good woman? Because, like, for example, a lot of the relationships that I know where people have been married or people have been together for like a long time now, a lot of them, they met years ago. So when you are in your 30s, where do you go today to find a good woman? Comment below, send me a message. You know all the usual stuff. So that's the first thing that I want to talk about. Second thing that I wanted to talk about is I wanted to talk to you lads about living your life based on principles. Right, so most of you will know I've spent essentially the last 6 years studying two questions. One, how do you become successful? How do you start with nothing and rise? How do you basically become an underdog? How do you beat the statistics? Is it possible for you to go from being a dickhead to being a nice person? Is it possible for you to go from debt to a millionaire? Is it possible for you to go through the fostering system where you've been betrayed, you've been cheated on, you've been lied to, you've been moving from home to home to being one of the most loving parents, kindest human beings, most successful human being, give loads to people? For example, a man like Wayne Dyer, right? I studied a man called Wayne Dyer, and his parents abandoned him. His parents literally could not look after him, and they gave him up. And he went from foster home to foster home to foster home, and he turned out to be one of the best human beings and has inspired millions of people. I wanted to know, one, is it possible? And two, how the hell do you do that? The second question that I wanted to know related to that is, how do you do that without ending up a dickhead, without ending up stepping on everybody to become successful or to be happy? Like, how do you do it by still being a good person? And in that quest to answer that question, one of the things that I had to do is I had to basically study people who've already achieved those two questions. And it was funny, and I only share this with you, and I wanted to talk about it because I think it's really important for you guys to get this, because I never really understood this. I didn't even get this for ages. So when I started studying these individuals who'd already achieved these lives, so they are successful and they're still happy and they haven't killed themselves and they haven't stepped on everybody to get there, I started to discover what I call inconvenient truths. The way I define an inconvenient truth is a piece of information that I discover about success or about happiness that I don't particularly want to hear. It's really obvious, it's really simple, it's really easy, but I don't really want to hear it. So, one of those things is that the most successful people and the happiest people who started with nothing, they all seem to live their life based on principles. They seem to live their lives based on very basic stuff. And so what I would ask you to do, and to ask yourself, is, do you live your life based on principles? For example, let me give you a principle that successful people who are happy live by. I will not cheat anyone to get to where I want to get to. See, that's a principle. Some people genuinely, I'm telling you right now, some people live by that rule. They're successful and they've never cheated anyone to get to where they want to get to. My question to you and what I'm trying to say is, okay, cool. So you've started off with nothing. You're a good guy or whatever, and you want to get to the top. You want to live an exceptional life. You want to live your best life ever. What are your principles? What are your rules? What things will you not do to become successful? I ask myself that question. Do you know what? For example, one of the things, in fact, you guys are listening to me or watching me do this podcast, but part of the reason why I'm doing this podcast is I said to myself that a really successful life to me was a life where I did something that I enjoyed. I did something which added value to the lives of other people. And when I was an estate agent, I looked at my life and I thought, I was a good estate agent. Good money, was process of buying buying a house. I had a really nice car. But I looked at my life and said, do I add value into people's lives in this job? Well, not really. Because my intention really is to get as many sales as possible, not to add value into people's lives. I asked myself, does this really make me happy? Does this job really make me happy? And I realized, no, it doesn't really make me happy. So do you know what I decided one of my principles in life was? I decided that one of my principles in life was that I wanted to do things that brought joy into my life. Because the reason why I say this is that I recognize that how the hell can I be a good human being? How can I inspire other people? How can I raise amazing children if I am not happy myself? Most of you are listening to this, right? And you can relate to the fact that you grew up in a family where, honestly, all your parents ever did was complain about their job. They hated their job. They hated their boss. They felt that they were stuck. And inadvertently, without you realizing it, your parents essentially made you come to the belief system that it was not really ever possible for somebody to be successful and do something that they love. That's not even in your vocabulary. It is not in your definition of the world. You don't even believe it. You do not actually believe that somebody can be successful and they can be a good person. And if you disagree with that statement, let me ask you a question. If I followed you around for 1 month without you knowing, I know it's a bit creepy, but go with it, would your life prove that you actually believe that statement? I don't know. I'm just saying to you, start thinking about living your life by principles. Live your life by rules. Set some guidelines, set some rules for yourself about things that you will not break. You know, I hear loads of people say, Cassim, you know, I would do anything to be successful. But the thing that I say to them is, okay, that's cool, bro, but what will you not do? What will you not do, bro, to become successful? You know, you talk about the fact that you just want to be happy. Okay, well, if you want to be happy, will you have to go counseling? Will you have to go become vulnerable? I was just thinking about that. That's just the second thing that I wanted to share with you lads that I was thinking about. But I just ask you, you know, I have this seminar that I do on a Sunday, a goal-setting seminar. And one of the things that I say is that if you really want to start achieving some of the goals that you want in your life, one of the things that you're going to have to start doing is that you're going to have to stop experimenting and you're going to have to start living intentionally. You know, a lot of lads, we're just experimenting. We're just kind of making everything up. We're making up success. We're making up happiness. One of the major kind of defining moments in my life that happened was the day that I discovered that nothing is new. Everything that I wanted, somebody else already had. And then I discovered that if I essentially modeled, we don't use the word copying because copying is not the right word. We use the word modeling. If I modeled what somebody has already got and I took it and I've basically followed the same footsteps that they've taken and I add it to myself and I kind of refine it and give it my own spin on it, I will get there or thereabouts the same results as somebody else. That was defining for me, guys. And I know it may sound silly to some of you, but I didn't realize that. I didn't know that if I wanted to basically become a good footballer, if I studied, which I'm going to get to in a bit when I talk about something else, but if I study people who are the best and I follow the same principles that they did, I will get kind of the same results. And I'm just wondering how many of you lads really do live your life based on principles of what made other people successful in the areas that are important to you. I don't know, just thinking about that. The third thing that I wanted to talk about that I wrote down here was really about the importance of building confidence. You know, I read a lot of autobiographies, and for the last 6 years or so, I've been reading an autobiography every single week. And in reading those autobiographies, obviously a number of things begin to become very, very, very clear very quickly. And one of the common denominators that links people who've started off with nothing, because all the autobiographies that I've read are about people who've started off with nothing. One of the things that begins to become very clear is every single person who started off with nothing and has built something of consequence in their life believed in themselves. They had confidence. You see that word over and over and over and over again when you study successful people. Now, obviously, there has to be an element of humbleness because the line between ego and dickhead and an arsehole and confidence is a very, 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 very fine line. But I would say to you, just think about this for yourself. Do you have confidence? Because come on, guys, I mean, you've got to agree with me here. Most lads can clearly do a lot more than what they're doing. I don't know. Maybe you disagree with me, and you're kind of like most lads who you know. They're not really that talented. They don't have that much skill. They don't have that much potential. But I don't think that you agree with that statement. I think most of you who are listening to this, you can genuinely agree with me and say most people that you know who are guys, including yourself, you have loads of potential. You can do loads of things, right? You genuinely could do the most remarkable things if you really wanted to, right? You may not want to, but my point being is you could do it if you really wanted to. And you know loads of lads who could do great things if they really wanted to. Issue is, they lack the confidence. They don't have that belief in themselves. And so one of the things that I really want to get across to you, just talking man to man here, is you've really got to go and study this confidence thing. You've really got to go. Building confidence in your life has to be something that you spend a considerable amount of your time on. And I don't know whether you need to go online, whether you need to go on a course, whether you need to do a seminar, whether you need to go see a therapist, a counselor. I don't know what you need to do. Well, actually, that's a lie. I do know, but that's not what we're talking about today. But my point being is, please go and sort out how to build confidence in your life. Because so many of the problems that you're going to occur or that you're going to come across in your life, the root of them is going to be a lack in confidence. Whether that be leading your family, whether that be making a decision, financial decisions about your children or about your family or about your missus or about where you spend your time. I just really, really, really encourage you to really get this confidence thing under control. Spend time on it. Really spend a lot of time on handling it. Did you know, I say to people all the time that in England, basically anywhere you go in the UK, there's public libraries. And I say to people all the time, to get a library card is like £1. And in the library, you can basically hire any book that you want for free. And I say to people all the time, did you know that successful people have written books on how to build confidence? Did you know that there are people who struggled with their confidence and they've written books about how to be confident? And people don't even read it, and they can go to the library and it's free. I don't know, maybe you might disagree with me and you say, actually, Cassim, confidence really isn't that important. I would love to have a conversation with you where you try to persuade me that confidence isn't really that important. Because I think that confidence is really important. Not only whether it be talking to girls or trying to find a job, or go to a job interview and trying to get recruited for a job, to convincing your customers and your clients to buy into your vision, buy into your product, buy into you. Confidence is a huge thing. And I just find that so many lads never spend time studying this area. And I'm going to talk about studying life in a moment, but really, I would really encourage you in your own life to just make building confidence a major force in your life. Because if you can sort out the confidence issue, so many of the other problems that you're going to encounter in your life are going to be eradicated. There is a book that I'm due to write about some laws, and in that book I talk about what is called the parental rule, the parental law. I think it's rule or law. It can be called a rule or law. And essentially, to basically give it an overview, this rule essentially says that about 80% of the things that you do don't matter, and it's only the 20% that matters. what essentially that means, and without me going into loads of research on this, what that essentially that means is, if you go to work and you're in sales, there's loads and loads of things that you can do, such as tidying your desk, such as making sure that your files are all neatly done, etc., which will equate to about 80%. But that 80% really is irrelevant, because what you want to focus on is the 20%, because 20% of the things that you do when you're at work in sales brings most of the results in your life, and in that particular area, and it eradicates a lot of the other issues. For example, if we're talking about sales, making phone calls, speaking to your client is clearly a major thing. You can have the nicest desk and the most tidiest desk, but if you do not make phone calls and speak to clients, if you're in sales, a lot of the other problems begin to occur because you're not focusing on the things that are most important, on that 20%. What I'm trying to get across to you is confidence is a 20% factor principle. If you earlier on I said to you, you should try and live your life by principles. I'm sharing with you that confidence, you should try and make that a principle of your life. You should make building confidence a major force in your life. Because if you can become confident, so many of the other problems in your life get eradicated. They become stupid. For example, when you're confident and you've been speaking to multiple girls and one girl says to you she doesn't like you, it's kind of like, okay, doesn't matter. But when you lack confidence and you go take the courage to speak to a girl and she rejects you, it's a major blow in your life. Do you see what I'm saying by this? Right? If you are confident in your ability and yourself, and you're in a job which is toxic, which is driving you mental, which is just, it's not joyous anymore, which is not bringing you joy, which is not bringing you fulfillment, and you're like, Cassim, actually, to be fair, there is something else that I want to do, but there is no guarantee it's going to work out. When you have confidence in yourself, you can take that jump. But when you lack confidence in yourself, you can't take that jump, because you're like, well, Cassim, if I leave this job, what if things don't work out? The confident person says, even if it doesn't work out, I will make it work out. I will do whatever to make it work. Do you see what I'm saying to you? When you have a patch in your relationship and things are not going as great as what you want them, when you have confidence in the relationship, you can be patient and sit still in that period where there is chaos happening in your life. When you don't have confidence in your relationship and you hit a glitch, or you start arguing, or you're not as close as you've been at the beginning of your relationship, most people are just going to quit and leave the relationship because they don't have that confidence. So what I'm saying to you is, if you can build that confidence in yourself, and you begin to make confidence a major force in your life, I'm telling you, remarkable things are going to happen to you. Remarkable things are going to happen to you. But I hope that I've really convinced you of the importance of this as a man. And we're just talking man to man here, right? That's the reason why I call this man to man, because we're just talking as a man to man here. Obviously, you can't directly talk back to me, but if you was my boy and we was having a conversation, this is what I'd say to you. Build confidence in your life, man. Make it a major force. You can do it. And when you do it, so many great things are going to happen in your life. And you deserve to have some great things happen to you. You deserve to get a promotion. You deserve to find a missus. You deserve to actually be in a body that you actually love, right? And for some of you lads, you're such good people, but great things are not happening in your life because you lack that confidence to take a risk, to believe in yourself, to go out there and actually lead your life instead of being passive, instead of being a passenger. I don't know. That's what I would share with you, but obviously it's your life, so you've got to do whatever it is that you want. The second to last thing that I want to talk about is really about learning from your life. So in studying successful people, one of the things that I came to learn, which was a really weird concept, and I didn't really fully understand it at first, is I learned a concept which is called pattern recognition. So how do I put this for you? Let me put it like this. So I'm due to write a book next year, and the book is going to be about the lessons that I have learned in hospitality. Because I started off working in the hospitality and catering industry when I was 16. As a kitchen porter in a restaurant called 0 Degrees. And ever since then, I've basically been working in that industry as a chef and as a waiter, blah, 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 and on and on and on. And one of the lessons that I'm going to share in that book is that when you work in the catering industry or you work in the hospitality industry, there is a concept called forecasting. And what essentially forecasting means, let's just use, for example, the co-op, because I've worked in the cooperative before. I've just quit the co-op actually. In the co-op, there's something called forecasting. What forecasting means is a co-op based on the last 3 years of their sales. They can predict, based on the last 3 or 4 or 5 years of their sales, what's going to be happening and how much bakery they need to be making on a specific day this year. They can predict how much staff they're going to need to have in on a specific day. They can predict how much money they're going to take in on a specific day, there or thereabouts. Clearly, it doesn't guarantee that their money is going to be there. It doesn't guarantee that something's not going to happen in the economy where people all of a sudden clearly are not going to eat as much as what they thought. But the point is, they can very, very closely predict what is going to be happening on a specific day. And what I want to really get across to you is this. As we're just talking man to man here, please can I ask you to do me a favor? Start looking at your life and predicting and looking at the patterns. Look, if you've spent the last 3 years coughing, feeling unwell, going in and out of relationships, getting fired from jobs, going in and out of jobs, look, there's a common denominator here. The common denominator is you. And I know you may be listening to me and saying, well, Cassim, that's bullshit. Well, I'm just saying, we're just talking man to man here. Let's just speak the truth. If you've, for example, have been, let's just say for the last 6 years, you have been in relationships, and every single time something that's happened is that you've broken up from these relationships after 6 months or after 2 months. Ask yourself why. Why does that keep happening? And also, why does it happen to you? Is there something about you that is causing for this to happen? Maybe you're self-sabotaging yourself. I don't know. Because clearly I don't know your situation. But my point being is, I ask you to really, really look at your life and start seeing the patterns. You know, for example, as we talk man to man here, let me ask you this question. Obviously, if we look back at the last 5 years of your life, we can kind of, your jobs and your career, you've been what? You may have been started off as a kitchen porter, then you became a waiter. From a waiter, you became a supervisor. From a supervisor, you've now become an assistant. We can kind of predict how your life is going, right? My question to you is, do you like that? Let me put it another way. You've been in a relationship at the moment, right? And your relationship for the last 6 years has been exactly the same. You've done exactly the same things. You've gone exactly the same places. Shouldn't you, but we can almost predict what's going to, do you honestly think all of a sudden, if your relationship has been a certain way for the last 6 years, that all of a sudden, what, you're now going to get married? It just is not going to be like that. Because when you start looking at people who got married, there's usually steps that people go through. They usually start dating, and then they start They start talking about relationships and marriage, and they start talking about children. Do you see what I mean? When you hear couples start talking about children and how many children that they want and how they'd raise their children, you can begin to see a pattern emerging. So what I'm trying to say to you is, and look, this is your life. You got to do you. You got to do whatever it is that you want. I'm not your boss. I'm not your dad. I'm just talking man to man with you. I'm just suggesting to you that you want to begin to look at your life, and you want to begin to really look at the patterns of your life. You want to begin to really study yourself. I started studying myself. One of the things that I discovered about myself is that I shut people out. And I was like, why do I keep shutting people out? My mum used to say to me all the time, Cassim, don't isolate yourself, son. And I never understood why my mum kept saying that to me. I was like, what? One day I was like, because I kept hearing my mum saying it. My mum was like, Cassim, don't isolate yourself. And I was like, why does my mum keep saying for me not to isolate myself? And I looked at my life and I discovered, I'm a bit of a coward, in all honesty, because I have to have, when I was growing up, I grew up in poverty. Most of you know my story. I grew up in Uganda. I had nothing. And without me giving you some kind of sob story, what ended up happening at the early part of my life was that my mum had to move to England. And when she moved to England, she left me for a whole year with my auntie. And my auntie had children, other children. And my mum used to send money when she was in England while my auntie was looking after me, and I did not see a penny of it. And my auntie used to treat me like nothing. And obviously many of you will know that my biological father got my mum pregnant at 15, and he just left her. He disappeared. And when I was growing up in England, we were poor. We lived on a council estate. And so when I was growing up, I always felt that I did not have a lot of control over my life. And I hated it. I remember there was one circumstance when I was younger where I went to school and I saw loads of kids having school dinners. And I was like, I want school dinners. But my parents were not that poor that we could go on benefits and basically get our food paid for us. But my parents weren't rich enough that they could pay for me to have school dinners. I remember when I was in school, my friends used to go off to La Sigualia and they used to go off skiing. But I could never do that because my parents didn't have money. And as I grew up, and I didn't even recognize this about myself until I started really looking at some of my patterns and looking at my life, I didn't realize that I'm one of these people who's really scared to commit to anything. I don't really want to engage in anything where I do not have full control of it. And so what ends up happening is that in my life, I realized many times I never let people come close to me. I never really commit to anything. And it's actually something that it's horrible for me to say this really, and it's kind of quite painful. But if you speak to some of my friends, there is something that I recognize. I was journaling about this about a year ago. There is a phrase that I heard my friend say to me, Larry said this to me. Larry said, Cassim, we don't even know you. We've spent time with you, but we don't even know you. Which was a really painful thing for me to actually hear one of my friends say. But I recognize that when I was growing up, I spent so much time on other people and what other people wanted and what other people wanted to do that I never really gave anyone an opportunity to really know me. Most people don't really know Cass. Most people don't know what my dreams are. Most people don't know what my dreams are, my goals are. Most people don't know what I value, because I never wanted to share that. Part of that was because when I was growing up, I was bullied a little bit in school because I had a really strong African accent. And so when I was growing up, I never really wanted to share my views. I never wanted to share my opinions. And what I'm trying to say to you is, you want to begin just to like, look at these patterns in your life. Why do you keep failing in a certain area? Why do you keep succeeding in a certain area? I don't know. It's just something that I was thinking about when it came to men, because I just think us men, sometimes we're so preoccupied with life and what other people have done to us and becoming successful that we never take the opportunity to just stop. To just stop and look at our life. To just stop and observe our life. I just don't think a lot of us lads do that. And I would just encourage you personally to do it. Obviously, it's your life. Do whatever it is that you want. But I'm just recommending this to you. The last thing that I want to talk about is really about researching life, success, and happiness, and any area that is really important to you. So I briefly touched on this earlier on when I was talking about confidence and making confidence a major force in your life. But one of the things that I'd recommend to you do is start studying any area which is really important to you. So if you want to be happy, start studying happiness. You know, I mentioned to you earlier on that one of the life-defining days for me was the day that I realized that nothing that I want is new. Nothing. You speak to 1,000 people and you ask them what do they want in life, they all tell you they want to be happy. I wanted to be happy. You speak to 1,000 people and you ask them what do they want in life, they'll all tell you, I want to be successful. I want a good life. You know, whatever success means to them. I wanted that. And when I started realizing this, I was like, holy crap, everyone already has the things that I want. And so one of the things that I would personally recommend to you, and as I say, we're just talking man to man here, is, bro, research the areas that are important to you. So for example, for me, clearly, as most of you know, one of my areas is, and the things that's really important to me, is helping men. I want to help men become higher, fuller expressions of themselves. So guess what I do? I spend a considerable amount of my time researching and watching videos and interviewing people about men, about success, about happiness, about trauma, right? About the problems that we men experience. I spend a huge amount of my time doing that. And what I would personally recommend to you, again, it's your life, do whatever that you want, is start studying the areas that are really important to you. Because as you begin to study areas that are really important to you, you will begin to realize, holy crap, this stuff is really simple. That's part of the reason why I said to you earlier on, start living your life by principles. You know, I told this story many times, but I'll tell it again. I have my little brother plays for England. His home team is Chelsea, but he plays for England. And I asked my brother, I said, Bashir, you obviously have had access to go down to St. George's Park and you've seen, you know, some of the best players play and you've seen the rugby teams train. Is there anything that you've learned from these individuals that you didn't realise before? And Bashir said to me, yeah, there is, Cassim. He said, when I watch these big teams play and train, they spend most of their life doing things that are really basic, things that are fundamental. And he said, and I didn't expect that. And one of the things that I share with people, particularly people who want to become leaders, is you want to go and find people who've already got what you want and then model them. Honestly, some of you guys, and you're listening to me, and you are having issues right now with your confidence. And there are people who've already mastered how to be confident. You don't even need to make it up. They've already figured out how to be confident. And you don't even go and study them. It's insane. It's madness to me. Some of you lads are like, Cass, you know what? I want to be more successful. But you haven't even picked up a single book on how to become successful. Literally millions of people have wrote books on how to become successful, and you haven't even picked up a single one of them. There are podcasts on how to become successful. There are videos on YouTube of how to become successful. There are groups on Facebook of how to become successful. Study any area that you want to succeed in is my personal recommendation to you. Research it. You know, one of the things that I say to lads is figure out where you want to be in 10 years. Find people who are already there and then ask them how they got there. And the other thing, by the way, that's really important, which I've come to realize about research and study, is you may study an area of life and you may not like where it's going to end up. For example, when I was an estate agent, and particularly when I was in the hospitality industry, I did this exercise where I looked up people in the hospitality industry who were much older than me. You know, people who were 20 years down the line. And I looked at how were their lives. And in the catering industry, I realized that managers were working every single weekend because the busiest time in restaurants is Saturdays, Fridays and Saturdays. And I was like, I don't want that. I want to spend time with my missus on the weekend. I want to spend time with my family. So that's not going to work for me. I looked at people in the estate agency industry, and I looked at people who were 20 years down the line. And many of them were divorced. Many of them were on coke. I would see directors and regional managers out partying with kids who were 21. I was like, boy, no. When I'm 45, I do not want to be partying with 21-year-olds. Getting high. Why would I, at 41 years of age, want to be getting high with 21-year-olds? No. I was like, no, that's not going to work for me. So I'm going to need to do something in my life to alter the course of that, unless I'm going to be there or thereabouts. Obviously, like everything in life, there's nothing that's guaranteed. But I was like, I don't want that. But again, that's up to you. You've got to do whatever that you want. So those are the 5 things that I wanted to share with you and that I wanted to talk about today. Maybe there is some things that you want to share. You want to come on my you want to come on my podcast. Come on. We'll talk about it. You know, I love people coming on and having a conversation with me. Maybe there's some topics that you want to talk about. Maybe it's success. Maybe it's friendship. Maybe it's getting a girlfriend and you want to talk about it. Comment below. Send me a message. Guys, you know all the usual stuff. Don't be shy. Thank you so much for watching, guys. And I shall see you in the next episode, which will be next week at the same time. Bye for now.